Welcome to the Soul Driven Podcast. I believe that when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. If you are searching for meaning and purpose, if you are unsure about how to combine the spiritual with the everyday, if you are ready to uncover who you truly are, then you've come to the right place. The Soul Driven Podcast is dedicated to exploring the intersection of living a soulful and spiritual life in a driven and ambitious world. Join me for practical guidance, truthful discussions, and interviews with people who are successfully living a soul-driven life. My name is Anna Hendricks, spiritual guide, marketer, and your host. Thank you for being here. Welcome back, folks, to another soul-driven Akashic reading for the month ahead. October, what is up? I'm a November baby, and I love the fall time. There's always been something about October that has really drawn me in. I can't fully explain why. There's just something about the way the word looks, the fact that maybe it starts with an O. I don't really know what it is, but I've always, my spirit really starts coming alive when we hit October. It's like October, November, December. And really, I think September is a part of that as well. But again, by the time we hit October, it's like, what's up, October? I get so excited. I'm a fall baby, and that is definitely my favorite time of year, followed up by spring, of course. I'm not one who's much for extremes when it comes to temperature, but I certainly prefer the colder air over the warmer, the heat, I should say, specifically when it's combined with humidity. My body just shuts down. It is not a fan, not here for it, not excited about it. And yet I have to tell you, throughout my life, I continue moving to hot, humid places. But that is for another day. So what's up? Welcome. We aren't in October just yet. When this goes live, we're going to be a couple days before. I kind of went back and forth about when I should launch this episode, but it just felt really right to do it ahead of time because I'm actually going to be taking a break from the podcast next week. I've had a lot of things going on in my life right now. I've really been treading water in a way with the podcast, and I just flat out need a break to publish a podcast, show notes, video clips, all that. It's a lot of work. And yeah, girls just got to take a break. But what's exciting is I have been planning out these last couple of months of 2021. We've got some incredible interviews coming, fantastic workshops, and of course, the end of the year, we're going to be doing a 2022 forecast episode again with Sarah Elise, the evolutionary astrologer who's been on this podcast multiple times. She will be bringing the astrology, and I will have spent time in the records really channeling through what is coming for us in 2022. So I'm very excited about that. If you haven't listened to the 2021 forecast, highly recommend checking it out. If nothing else, because it's great discussion. But it really just kind of blows my mind how, obviously I think astrology is the way that I view astrology is science, period. I know that there's a lot of people out there who don't believe in astrology, but when it comes to astrological forecasts, heck yeah. I pretty much guarantee that they will align. There are just certain things that happen in the sky. There's just a number of things that can absolutely be shared ahead of time. But it was my first time doing an Akashic reading for an entire year. And I did 3 readings, broke it up, and then kind of combined them to really wrap my head around what it was that was happening for 2021. And I think I'm going to do it a little bit differently this year, but that's neither here nor there at this time. All this to say, so many exciting things coming. In addition, my birthday is next month. What's up? Very excited about that. So, October, we're jumping in here. And I have to tell you that looking back on September, I really like to kind of talk about the month before the month that we're getting ready to jump into. If you are new to this show, welcome. What's up? I just feel like doing a recap from the previous month and then kind of diving into the current and upcoming month is really important. But September was, at least for me, another big month. It wasn't as hardcore as September. I was very thankful for that. It was definitely all about relationships, at least for me. If you had a different experience, I would love to hear it. I'd love to know how September was for you anyway. But our theme, the lesson, interconnection for September, really hit home for me. Really hit home for me in just a number of different ways. Relationships came to the forefront, and I don't mean just like romantic relationships at all, just relationships in general, and so much about communication and about being able to communicate in new and different and better ways, about being able to see the perspectives of other people, about just the many ways that relationships and interconnection come together or are interweaved. I mean, I think in some ways when I think about relationships, there's this very like high level, we've got these certain kind of big topics, but relationships, it's such a dense topic, right? There's so much there. You can go so deep in so many different areas. And I would say the biggest thing that really came through for me this month was just revisiting some of my younger selves' past wounds, if you will. I don't even know that they're past wounds as much as lessons that were never fully learned, never fully worked through in regards to how I am in relationship with other people. I am a Mars and Virgo girl. And the thing about Mars and Virgo is that it's I call it the home monitor in my personality. The home monitor who feels responsible for like everyone. And my Venus is also in Capricorn, which like, wow. Between the two of those, I'm like really like mom incarnate, even though I have no children of my own. I don't even have a goldfish. But there's this part of my personality that really likes to like mother everyone and make sure everyone's in line and being responsible and acting with integrity and blah, 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 freaking blah. And man, has it gotten me in so much trouble in my life because big surprise, people don't want to be controlled by other people. Oh my gosh. I can't stand being controlled by other people. So it's so wild to see this part of myself in myself, if you know what I mean. Like September brought me front and center to some of the ugliest parts within myself that were flat out uncomfortable to see. Terrible. I was in tears a couple of times. I was berating myself a couple of times. Then I chilled out and got a little bit nicer. But I really had to come to terms with some things in my personality that need to shift, that I need to let go of. Like this propensity to be very bossy and controlling in other people's lives, which I don't think that much of that has come out through this podcast. It's more so something that happens like unconsciously in my everyday life or potentially like in some of my relationships. And I wouldn't say it's like something that comes out a whole lot. It comes out, I think, when I'm feeling very unstable in my life or kind of feeling like, like there's a lack of security in some way, shape, or form. And then so I try and start controlling other things around me. This may resonate with you, but there's a couple of other things in my chart that also align with this really fun piece. But yeah, it's, for me, last month, at this month, because it's still September, it was a tough time because of that, but it wasn't a tough time like it felt like the world was splitting into 20 different pieces, like it was in August. I'm like, wait, what's before September? In August and July. Those 2 months were very hard for me. And what I did find in this month was a new compassion for myself in the midst of seeing these uglier sides of myself. You know, my shadow is really how people talk about this a lot. And again, I don't know if this resonates with you. I don't know if you've been experiencing the same thing within yourself. If you have, I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up, souldrivenpodcast@gmail.com. But, and if you have been, you are not alone, you know? But I've found this new compassion for myself in realizing, like, not only where some of this is coming from, like where it's rooted at in my life, in past lives potentially, but understanding that these are coming to the surface now so that I can really work with them because of what I'm being called to do down the road. And so these lessons, while very difficult and uncomfortable, and quite frankly, I'd like to give them away a lot of the time, are bettering me and are making me a better person and more fit to do the work that I want to do, the work that I dream of. And so I wanted to share that with you because in the midst of these times, you know, we're all being called to do different things. And especially, I mean, like Mercury went retrograde last night. It is retrograde today as I am recording this. And over these next several weeks, we're really going to be asked to review parts of ourselves and review things in our lives. And some astrologers call Mercury in retrograde a second chance, which I think is pretty cool. But it's definitely a slow down period where you're really forced to go inside and look at some big themes that are popping up for you right now. It could be with work, could be with relationship, could be with kids, could be whatever, you know, like how you're taking care of yourself, whatever the case may be. But all of these things happen for our benefit, right? And they're happening to help us to grow into that next iteration of who we're meant to be. So, not trying to be lengthy here on the front end. Of course, my jibber jabber gets going and it just is what it is. But yes. So, October. For those who haven't listened to this podcast before, again, welcome. The Akashic Records are this beautiful, beautiful, energetic library, if you will, of everything that has happened, is happening, will happen for everything. Everything has an Akashic Record. Whether I'm talking about a building or an animal or a person or a state or a body of water, everything has an Akashic Record because everything is energy. And the Akashic Records basically read energy to get right down to it. So every month I channel through a message for the listeners of the Soul Driven podcast. If you are here, it is because you are meant to be here. This message is for you. Even if this is the only time you ever listen to this podcast, there's something here for you today. And it doesn't matter when you listen to this podcast. If you are drawn to it, there's something here for you today because time doesn't exist outside of this planet. It's very much a human construct. If you would like to learn more about the Akashic Records there's a bonus episode you can check out. We'll have a link in the show notes that explains that a little bit more. In addition, you can go to my website, annahendricks.com, learn more about the Akashic Records. If you would like to book a reading with me, I won't go into all of that now, but all of that information is there. Especially as we're going into 2022. This is a beautiful time. And I know we've still got a couple of months, but I'm kind of someone who doesn't like to wait until last minute to do things. When I start thinking about like the next year, like I'm gonna start doing it like in October because it's just who I am. Um, but book a session. What is it that you need to focus on coming up? What are the things you want to clarify in your life, whatever the case may be? So, what's going to happen is as I finish chatting here, we'll just kind of slide into the October reading, and then I'll pop back in on the other end to talk about integration, to talk about some things that really stood out for me. These are my interpretations. We all garner our own different things from these readings, and that's what is so beautiful about them. But I'll also be pulling a card for the month and just kind of chatting a bit about what's coming up. Um, something I was gonna say. Something I was gonna say. Oh yes. Finally, I highly suggest that you find a quiet space, put on some headphones, close your eyes, and just enjoy this message. Don't feel the need to grasp every little thing that comes to you or that I share in this message. Take with you what really resonates. And when the reading is over, hit pause, jot down a couple of bullet points about the things that really stood out, and then revisit this reading a couple times through the month, especially if you're feeling a little bit lost, if you're not really sure what's going on in your life, what's going on around you. Come back to the reading. There will be something here for you. Okay, so without further ado, I'll see you on the other side.
Chaos is what is ensuing, even as we speak. Small titillations of the world are going back and forth, left and right, front to back, up and down. Those polarities, well, they seem to be singing a ripening tune. It gets louder, grows heavier. For truly there is a breaking apart that is happening. A split down the center line of your planet between those who see and those who refuse to do so. This split is growing deeper. The divide is becoming wider. The melodies and tunes from this earlier year are breaking apart into cries and cackles, into violent doings, into constant undoings. For truly the mantle is breaking apart. It is coming down. It is coming undone. There are no foundations that were built upon mud and putty that will withstand the direct force that is taking place. No, they will not be able to stand. They will fall to the wayside. They will be lost in the darkness, for there is no place for them anymore. These are dark endeavors. Yes, we know. But always there is darkness before the light. There is truth before the dawn. And this truth is ringing louder and louder. It is a beating drum. It is the steady heartbeat of those who are continuing forward, regardless of how the earth below them breaks apart and becomes unsteady. For they will be the ones carrying the torch into the future, carrying that bright light that so many of you are looking to find, yet do not see the very light that resides inside of you, the one that wishes to turn on, the one that wishes to be seen by its neighbors, to be heard, loud, sound, proud, beating upon the ground that is falling apart. These are not easy times for many. Yes, we know this is true. But do not lose heart. Do not stop believing. Do not allow yourself to get swept up in all that is being swept up around you. Do not lose yourself in the headlines or fill your time with the voices of others who only seek to fill you with fear, to make you believe that unless you buy their product, do their thing, you will be left broken, wanting, and in need. For these are falsities of the greatest proportion. These are the lies that are breaking apart the very foundation upon which you all stand. And that is why the ground beneath you feels so unsteady. We know we sound like a broken record when we invite you to come back inside. When we say to you, go internal, connect with the deep-rooted wisdom that is within you, the peace that knows no boundaries, the great depth, the love that can move mountains, the eternal bliss that is always residing within you at any time if you seek it out. Perhaps our broken record will begin to get through to you. It will begin to seep into your very pores, and you will take it to heart, and you will put it into practice, and you will make it a part of you. For truly there is no greater tool that you can carry at this time. For as each day passes, your understanding grows deeper as you acknowledge further your control is fruitless. It knows no bounds. It can't be calculated or counted upon. for it is empty and frivolous. There is no control that can hold you up or keep you safe. No, that is something that you must let go. Surrender to these times. Surrender to what is. Surrender to the great breaking apart. And know that with all of your soul, that yes, even in these times, you can be empowered. You can find a high place from which to look down upon. You can find peace, resilience, even enjoyment. And we don't speak of the enjoyment found through material things, through the entertainment at your fingertips. No. We speak about an enjoyment that comes through the simple joys of your heart, an acknowledgement of how much you do have, even in these times. This is a great unfolding. This is a coming apart. This is the dawning of a new age, an age of light, of love, of a coming together. But first, much breaking down must take place. Do not lose your heart or grow weary. Take care of yourselves. Be gentle and kind with all of the emotions percolating to the top. The stresses, frustrations, irritations, loneliness. We know these are not easy times, and yet you asked to be here to experience this. Do not forget that no one is responsible for that but yourself. It was a choice you made. You have been given all the tools to live right and well in these times. Lean on the great magic that is within you. Lean on the strength that you have. Lean on those around you who are also looking to stand up right and do right by this planet at this time. For among yourselves, you will find a band of brothers and sisters who can unite and bring about the great changes your souls have all dreamed of. Stand tall. Don't lose faith. For we are still at the very beginning.
All right, folks. Just coming back now. Feel free to take your time, hit pause if you're not ready to dive into this portion yet. Whatever it is that serves you best. You'll have to excuse any background noise. It is, just kind of what happens when you record at home. Laundry, you're doing 50 million things at once, and yeah. Okay, so that was a really powerful reading that came through. I remember when I first channeled it, because as you may or may not know, typically my process is to channel through the reading, to have it transcribed, and to sit with it for a couple of days before I come back to record this part of it, so that I have some space to let it sink in, to really think about what is going on, what really stands out to me, kind of like some overall lessons. And this one was so packed full of so many different things. I feel like I could take it apart and teach on it for weeks, and I'm not exaggerating. I just felt like there was so much that they shared in this message. And so, kind of like I mentioned at the beginning in the intro part of these monthly readings, to revisit this reading throughout the month. And if you hit it every week, perfect. Even if you just hit it 2 or 3 times, that's amazing. I think that we're clearly walking into a huge month, clearly walking into a lot of intensity, which, considering Mercury went retrograde last night, that's no real surprise. We've got about 3 weeks of some heavy lifting to do. And who even knows how that's going to play out in the general landscape around us, right? In politics, in our world economies, and our world relationships. I think we've been seeing so much upending coming lately. So there's quite a few things that I want to touch on here. First of all, really, I think in the beginning, how it talked about the splitting, the polarity, that is really just, it's thick, right? It's like everywhere you go, if you don't know who you're talking to, and even if you do, you're kind of hesitant to be truthful about your opinions on something, your feelings towards someone. It's very, it really is, at least for myself, we're in this time now where it seems like we have to be really cautious of what we say. And that's certainly something that I've been experiencing a lot. I am a Devil Sagittarius. I have 5 large placements in my chart in Sagittarius. So I suffer from foot and mouth disease like anybody's business. I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten older, but I definitely suffered from it when I was young. Things just kind of slip out, and I'm like, whoops. But we can't be doing that anymore, As I have sat back and watched big names on, big names in our everyday world, whether in politics or entertainment or anything like that, get pulled apart for something that they said 5-10 years ago, my soul just hurts inside, because I just think oh my gosh, someone could totally go find something that I said at some point in time and think whatever it is that they want to about it. How beautifully fortunate am I to not be growing up in this time, because I'd be really screwed. I have to say that. But this splitting apart that is happening on our planet, you may or may not have heard about the 5D consciousness, i.e. our new earth, and what it is that we're stepping into. And that is this great polarity, this great divide that we're seeing. Those who are kind of continuing to walk the way that they walk, see the way that they've seen, versus those who are waking up. Those who are beginning to question the way that they've always seen things, and I mean, this is a wide range of folks, from someone who literally is just starting to question it versus someone who is, wanting to open up spiritually and wanting to get that ball rolling for themselves. Those are two very big gaps there, you know what I mean? But everything along that continuum is on one side, and then we've got the other side that's just like stubbornly staying their course and refusing to open up, refusing to see outside of that. And this polarity is really, not only is it truly physically, realistically happening, but it's also really pushing us. It's kind of tearing us apart in a way. And we're not just seeing this in like our relationships with each other, but we're seeing this with the systems that are breaking down. I mean, if you just pick up world news, much less just US news, which obviously I'm here in the US. I could put on my blinders and just focus here, and there's plenty to look at and just be like, oh my gosh. But if you look across it, like world news, there's so much happening that is just really, really pulling us apart right now. And it's pretty intense. So I think that, in the midst of being able to kind of find some space with what is going on, these are just some things for us to really be aware of. The foundations that have been in place that weren't built with integrity are falling apart. And that's because the new earth refuses to support them anymore. The lying, the betrayals, the bullshit that's been going on for so long just isn't going to continue going on. It's just not going to happen. So what I'm kind of calling that is like truth before the dawn, right? And when I say truth, I mean the truth, the things that are going to continue residing past this total breakdown will be what is true, what is real, what is made of integrity, not just in support of a select few, but for all of us, right? For everything on this planet, not just humans, but also our animals, also other things. It's not just one species that's going to maintain or is important here. This is all of us. And I thought it was interesting how it talked about, those who are going to be able to maintain are really kind of going to be the leaders that take us through this time. And when I talk about someone being able to maintain, I mean the very things that they talk about later in this reading, which is those who are able to handle all the bumps in the road and still stay, pretty neutral. Not that you won't have feelings, not that you won't tantrum, not that you won't get pissed, not that you won't feel like huge highs and lows, but that you will have built a system for yourself that helps you to maintain through this, because that's what it's going to take, right? Hope is so important. Having hope for our future, having a belief that we are still in charge of our everyday. Yes, absolutely. I loved when they talked about like how we have no control, right? And obviously we have no control. 2020 taught us that. I've talked about that many times on this podcast. But realizing that the control that we do have is on our own particular life in regards to what it is that we let in, what it is that we choose to see. We create more of whatever it is that we're creating. So if we're allowing ourselves to get lost in this fear, to get lost in the upheaval, to freak out, then that is what is going, that's what we're going to be creating more of. If we choose to see the good things in the everyday, if we choose to stay thankful for what we do have, for what is going well, we're going to create more of that. And that's something I'm personally really choosing to focus on right now. I have reenacted my gratitude practice over this past month and a half, I think. And it's just, oh my gosh, it blows my mind how important this is. And because we always have something to be thankful for. And when we are in the midst of thankfulness, there is no place for fear. They can't reside together. I love that they pointed out, like, don't lose yourself in the headlines or look to others who seek to fill you with fear. And this can be anyone. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people within the spiritual community right now who are even doing this. They are pushing messages of fear. They are pushing messages of like end times, of like, you need to be doing this or else, you need to be doing this or else. It's very sad. And of course, I mean, we're just seeing that all over the place, right? Those are not people we want to put our faith in. We don't want to put our faith in anyone, quite frankly. It's not to say you don't want to lean on others, you don't want to be there for them. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that we need to go internal. We need to tune in to the beautiful wisdom that is within us first, before looking to anything in the exterior world. And again, this is something that I'm so learning right now. I am in the midst of a breathwork workshop with Jen. Oh my gosh, my mind is blanking on last names. I interviewed her a couple of months ago, and we'll make sure to put a link in the show notes for that interview as well. She's amazing. But her breathwork workshop, it's called Closer. It is really helping me to go internal, to really kind of touch into myself, my voice, my quiet space, and to find out what is there for me, because there's always something there for me, right? We have so much wisdom inside of ourselves. We have no idea. And trying to control our exterior world is just going to land us in a world of trouble. Surrender is the best thing that we can do right now. And when this podcast goes live, it will have been a day after our monthly workshop where we are literally tapping into surrender. It's called Tapping into Allowance with Lindley Welty. And that's actually tomorrow night. I can't wait. Because I feel like there's so much right now. I mean, just surrender. Surrender to what is. Surrender to the things you can't change. Surrender to the people who have a different opinion, right? We don't need to police everyone in regards to what it is that they believe and are doing. It's not our place. And finally, just kind of towards the end, I really loved that they reminded us to find like-minded people. I think community is so huge right now, because we really need to find those that we can be completely ourselves with, right? That we can express our opinions, express our views. I was talking earlier on in this podcast about how things feel a little touchy, right? Being around people, that foot and mouth disease that I was talking about. And those are big things. Being able to be around someone who maybe they have even different views than us, but they still validate us, and or they still listen even if they disagree, and there's a respectful exchange there. Those are the types of people that we really, really, really need to connect with and have in our lives right now. And if you are looking for community, you haven't been able to find it, make sure you check out my Patreon community, the Soul Driven Collective. That is absolutely a space where you're welcome to come and be yourself and share and exchange, and you will be respected. But whether you find it within my collective or someone else's, I just encourage you to be very proactive about that, because we all need it so much right now. And then I guess really the last thing I wanted to touch on was just this reminder that we chose to be here during all of this. regardless of what comes this month, this next year, these next 10 years, we chose to be here. And when we put ourselves in a victim mentality, we aren't playing. We're just riding along. And that is not a place of empowerment. To remember that we literally chose to be here during this time, to go through these things, like we wanted to be here, I think is a very empowering thing to remember, because it means that we have everything that we need already to get through these times. You don't have to go out and buy it. You don't have to go out and become it. Any of those things. Right now, in this very moment, you have everything that you need. And that's just going to grow with time. So be kind to yourself. Truly be kind to yourself. And just open yourself up to what is. And surrender to everything you can't control. Okay. So I was really... I typically like to do the astrology for the month, but it's quite frankly just not possible. Was not possible for me to really sit down and wrap my head around it for the upcoming month. I talk about astrology a lot in the collective. It's just, I'm such a fan. But this Mercury retrograde is real, y'all. I might end up doing something later this month just to kind of be, create something to be supportive for you, but I'm not fully sure yet. So I'll be back with you on that one. But I will say that we're in this together. You're not alone. Everything's going to be A-okay. Okay. So the card I pulled for this month was, again, pretty intense. I used the Shamanic Healing Oracle deck that I have talked about multiple times on this podcast. Michelle Montuzes, and I could be mispronouncing that. Forgive me. We always provide a link to these cards in the show notes if you are interested. It's a great beginner deck for Oracle cards. I am very shamanically aligned. I love animals, love this earth, love being outside, love our elements, and this deck really speaks to me. But it has seemed to really speak nicely to these monthly themes as well. So the one that I pulled for this month is number 28, which is anger. And just a moment, what I thought was fascinating, I just have to geek out here for a second. The very last part of the reading talked about we are still at the very beginning. And everything about the number of this podcast, 8-2, which really is a 1, beginning, the fact that this card is a 2-8, that's a 1, that's beginning. I mean, there have been so many synchronicities with the number 1 for this specific episode. It's just kind of cool. Okay, anger has this beautiful picture of a bee that she drew. Anger, a very strong and primal emotion. Anger sometimes catches us by surprise, and at other times it seethes just under the surface, simmering a long while until it boils over, scalding anyone who is close. Anger is based in fear of loss, of control, fear of not being loved, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough. When anger enters your life, be it yours or someone else's, go beneath the surface and try to address the real fear that has triggered it. Anger doesn't go away without expressing the underlying fear. To me, this was really powerful because I felt like so much of the emotions that came through when I channeled October's reading were just intensity, was anger, was kind of I don't even know how to explain it. As it talked about the chaos that's happening, the splitting apart, it's there is a collective anger right now that is happening on so many levels, right? We're all pissed about something. Maybe we're mad at the government for not doing this or that, or maybe we're mad at our friends, or we're mad at our circumstances, or we're mad at the fact that life isn't going back to normal. We're mad. But what is underneath of that? Fear. Always, right? I've said this so many times on this podcast. Everything comes from a place of fear or love. It's that simple. Anger is obviously related to fear. And what is it that we are fearing right now, right? We're fearing the unknown. We're fearing our loss of control. We're fearing our lack of perceived security. We're fearing what's going to come tomorrow. We're fearing, opening that news app to see what they're going to do next. It's all fear. But the beautiful thing is that we don't have to live in that place. We can make a choice to live in a different place. But I would say that until we really come to terms with what it is that we are fearing right now, that we can't shift that perspective. We can't flip the script. So my invitation to you this month, especially through the midst of Mercury retrograde, is to become familiar, get intimate with what it is that is making you angry, or what it is that is causing you to feel fear. Go internal with it. Really sit with it. Write it out, like journal about it. What are you fearing? Why? Is this a real fear? Is this something that could happen? Okay, it hasn't happened. Well, you know what I mean? Like, really just go deep with it. If you're someone who doesn't like to journal, maybe that's not the season of your life. Voice recordings are amazing for that. I love doing that. Like when I'm driving down the road, sometimes just talking it out with myself can be so helpful for me getting to the bottom of things. That's also how I pray very often, is like in the midst of like walking or when I'm driving or something like that. And I'm just like talking with God and just like, okay, God, so blah, 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 blah. And I'll just keep talking. And God just starts sharing with me. Like I start getting all these downloads. Go internal with yourself right now. Become intimate with what it is that is like triggering you on the everyday. Because until we really flip that script, until we learn to see other things, we're going to be stuck here, or we're going to continue returning here. And living in fear is definitely not where we want to be. This is what I have for you for the month of October. Thank you so much for being understanding and kind about my background noise. And for joining me once again. I pray that this reading, this lesson, that this interpretation serves you. And I would love to hear what resonated with you in the reading, what really stuck out to you. Again, hit me up, send me an email, souldrivenpodcast@gmail.com. You can sign up for our email list so that you can get on top of the podcast updates, promotions, anything that are going on. If you are looking for community, definitely check out the Soul Driven Collective. I'm sending you much love, big hugs, and as always, don't forget, when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. Until next week.